Adorable. Watch this. The Zeruth Empire prided itself on its technological supremacy, its fleets of starships, and its capacity to subjugate lesser species without breaking a sweat. When they stumbled upon Earth, a barely interstellar civilization with no significant colonies, they barely gave it a second thought. Primitive, aggressive, and laughably fragile, sneered High Commander Trez. Bomb them into submission? The Zeruth didn't send a diplomat. They didn't broadcast a warning. They launched a devastating kinetic bombardment from orbit, targeting Earth's major cities, military hubs, and power grids. In mere hours, they reduced the shining lights of humanity to smoldering ruins. The Zeruth expected a surrender. What they got was humanity unchained. Stage 1. Retaliation. On the Zeruth capital ship, Trez received a transmission from the planet's surface. A lone human appeared on the screen, a ragged, soot-streaked figure with eyes burning like coals. "You bombed us?" "Adorable," the human spat. "Watch this." The feed cut off. Moments later, the Zeruth fleet systems began failing one by one. First, their communications scrambled, then their targeting arrays glitched, and finally, their engines shut down entirely. "How is this possible?" Trez demanded, his voice shrill. His crew scrambled for answers, but they were unprepared for the ferocity of the human counterattack. Hidden among the ruins of Earth, humanity had mobilized its secret weapon, distributed intelligence networks. Every surviving satellite, drone, and automated factory went to work, hacking alien systems, crafting makeshift weaponry, and launching kamikaze strikes on the vulnerable underbellies of Zeruth ships. What humans lacked in sophistication, they more than made up for with adaptability and sheer bloody-minded determination. Stage 2. Psychological warfare. As Zeruth vessels fell one by one, the humans didn't stop with brute force. They targeted the Zeruth psyche. The remaining ships received strange broadcasts, recordings of Earth's obliterated cities juxtaposed with images of smiling children, laughter, and music. These were followed by the grim promise: for every city you destroyed, 10 of your worlds will burn. The Zeruth had never encountered a species that would threaten, let alone attempt, such disproportionate retaliation. Their society, based on rigid hierarchies and control, was unequipped to handle this chaotic, asymmetric warfare. Stage 3. The Endgame. When the Zeruth finally mustered reinforcements, they found themselves outmaneuvered by a species that didn't play by their rules. Humanity began targeting hyperspace routes, blockading Zeruth trade networks, and infiltrating their systems with AI viruses. The final blow came when a single human shuttle, a rickety, patched-together craft, slipped past Zeruth defenses and detonated a low-yield EMP over their homeworld. In an instant, their planet plunged into darkness. No lights, no communications, no defense. Trez's final transmission echoed through the Zeruth fleet. "We thought them weak. They taught us terror." Aftermath. The Zeruth Empire fractured, its subjugated species rising up in rebellion after witnessing humanity's triumph. Earth, battered but unbowed, became a legend among the stars, a reminder that strength isn't measured by size or power, but by the will to fight back against impossible odds. And on Earth's ruins, humanity rebuilt. Tougher, smarter, ready for what came next. Chapter 1. The Day the Skies Turned Red. It started with fire from the heavens. The Vectal Imperium, a sprawling galactic empire with millennia of conquest under its clawed talons, descended upon Earth unannounced. Their arrival wasn't heralded by diplomatic overtures or a display of technological superiority. No, they skipped the pleasantries and went straight to bombing. At 2:37 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, the first barrage struck major cities: New York, Tokyo, London, Beijing. The explosions lit up the night sky as if a vengeful god had decided humanity's time was up. Fires raged, and ash blanketed the air, choking out both hope and light. It was chaos, terrifying and complete. But the humans? They weren't annihilated. Earth's population suffered, of course. Billions cried out in terror, confusion, and pain, but they also clung to one immutable truth: Humans were stubborn creatures, and nothing inspired stubbornness, quite like someone trying to wipe them out. The Vectal expected Earth to surrender within hours. What they got was the first inkling of human resilience. 3 hours after the initial strikes, Major David Cross stood in the command center of NORAD, surrounded by the flicker of monitors and the urgent clatter of keyboards. His uniform, though pristine, had begun to cling uncomfortably from sweat and tension. "Satellite imaging is coming online, Major," a technician called out. David nodded and turned to the largest monitor. "Let's see what we're dealing with." The screen filled with images of sleek, alien warships hovering over Earth's major cities. Their smooth, black surfaces gleamed, and plasma weapons charged ominously, glowing a sickly green. "They hit us fast, but they're not thorough," said Dr. Elaine Chambers, a physicist from MIT who had been brought in as an advisor. "Their targeting suggests they're aiming to demoralize, not obliterate." "A mistake," David growled. "They're giving us time to regroup." Elaine arched an eyebrow. "Regroup? Against that?" She gestured to the screen. "They're clearly centuries ahead of us." "Doesn't matter," David said. "Humans don't fold. We adapt." By daybreak, pockets of human resistance had already formed. Militia groups, remnants of militaries, and even civilians with nothing but stubborn determination began fighting back. Guerrilla warfare, Earth's oldest strategy, came naturally to its inhabitants. The Vectal were quick to discover that humans didn't need advanced technology to be dangerous. In the rubble of downtown Atlanta, a group of survivors, led by former Marine Sergeant Angela Morales, ambushed a squad of Vectal soldiers. Angela had fashioned a makeshift explosive from a propane tank, some wiring, and duct tape. The resulting blast sent the invaders scrambling, their insectoid forms flailing as fire engulfed them. "Cute armor," Angela muttered, picking up a discarded alien rifle. "Let's see how it handles human hands." Elsewhere, similar scenes played out. Farmers turned tractors into makeshift tanks. Hackers used rudimentary tools to infiltrate Vectal communication networks. Children passed notes and supplies through underground tunnels. Humanity had been blindsided, but now they were fighting back with an ingenuity and ferocity the Vectal hadn't anticipated. By the end of the first day, the Vectal fleet commander, Ktoris, received a troubling report. Casualties were mounting, not from planetary defenses, but from primitive, unpredictable attacks by the native population. "They are resourceful," one of his officers admitted, mandibles clicking nervously. Ktoris sneered. "Resourceful? They are insects swatting at titans. We will crush them." Chapter 2. Humans are weird. In the bowels of the Vectal flagship, the Vrendax Talon, Ktoris summoned his science advisor, Diaraxin, to explain the peculiar resilience of the human species. "They should be cowering by now," Ktoris growled. "Instead, they are fighting." "Why?" Diaraxin, a lanky creature with bioluminescent patches along his thorax, hesitated. "Their biology is unusual, Commander. Their bodies are frail compared to ours, but their capacity for rapid adaptation is unprecedented." "Explain." Diaraxin gestured to a holographic display of a human soldier's anatomy. "They are hardwired for survival under extreme conditions. Their adrenaline response amplifies strength and reflexes. Their brains are exceptionally adept at pattern recognition and problem-solving. And their psychology, it is unlike anything we've encountered." "How so?" "They are absurdly optimistic. Even when faced with overwhelming odds, they exhibit what they call hope. This drives them to resist beyond rational limits." Ktoris's mandibles clicked in irritation. "Hope? A delusion." Diaraxin shrugged, a gesture he'd picked up from studying humans. "Perhaps. But it makes them unpredictable. And unpredictability is dangerous." Back on Earth, humanity's unpredictability was on full display. In a hidden bunker beneath the Rocky Mountains, David Cross was orchestrating what he dubbed Operation Boot to the Ant Hill. It was a desperate plan, but desperation bred creativity. "We can't match their firepower," he explained to his team. "But we can make them regret ever picking this fight." Elaine, skeptical but intrigued, leaned forward. "What's the plans?" Hack their systems, David said. Use their own tech against them. If they can't trust their equipment, they're vulnerable. Elaine nodded slowly. And how do you propose we do that? Their tech is alien. David grinned. It's advanced, sure. But I've got a team of hackers who think in ways no alien could predict. Meanwhile, in the ruins of Paris, a group of artists and engineers combined forces to create what they called the Phantom Offensive. Using holographic projectors scavenged from alien debris, they created lifelike illusions of human armies that appeared to march through the streets. The Vectal expended countless resources attacking these phantoms, only to discover too late that they were shadows. And in the forests of Siberia, an elderly hunter named Yuri Petrov lured a Vectal patrol into a trap using nothing but bear traps and an old hunting rifle. He left behind a note, scrawled in blood, "This is for my dog." By the end of the second week, Cthorus was forced to reevaluate his strategy. Humanity wasn't just surviving, they were thriving under pressure. And worse, their counterattacks were starting to hurt. "Commander," Dr. said, "may I suggest a different approach?" "Speak." "Perhaps we underestimated their resolve. Instead of brute force, we should study them further. Understanding their psyche might offer a more effective means of subjugation." Cthorus's eyes glinted with malice. "Very well, but be quick, Dr. I will not tolerate these insects defying us for much longer." Section 2. The First Retaliation. The blackened remains of what had once been a thriving human colony stretched endlessly beneath the cobalt sky of Proxima 3. Smoke curled into the air like the accusing fingers of the dead, and the remnants of orbital bombardment left glowing craters etched into the planet's surface. Humanity had been caught off guard by the Zorvan Empire's attack, a species whose arrogance was matched only by their technological superiority. But now, they had woken a sleeping giant. Admiral Katherine, commander of the UNSV Dauntless, stood on the bridge of her ship, her fists clenched at her sides. The holographic display in front of her painted a grim picture. A red sphere marked the Zorvan fleet's staging ground just beyond the Proxima system. It pulsed like a heartbeat, mocking her. "Status on the payload?" Kayla's voice cut through the tension on the bridge. Her officers, hardened veterans all, didn't flinch. "Omega Protocol is fully armed," replied Lieutenant Commander Ezra Kane, her second-in-command. His face was pale but resolute. "The payload will be ready to deploy within the hour." Kayla nodded sharply. The Omega payload wasn't just a weapon. It was a message. Humanity had suffered, yes, but they weren't defeated. The Zorvans thought their orbital bombardment had been devastating, and they were right. What they didn't realize was that humanity had learned how to hit back harder, faster, and with surgical precision. "Good," she said. "We'll make sure the Zorvans regret underestimating us." The plan. Deep within the Dauntless, Chief Engineer Marco Talone worked furiously. His team hovered around him, their hands a blur of movement as they calibrated the Omega payload. It wasn't just a bomb. It was a carefully crafted masterpiece of human ingenuity. Nanodetonators, EMP cascades, and a tailored viral matrix, all packed into a sleek, almost elegant torpedo. "This thing's going to light up their fleet like fireworks on New Year's," Marco muttered, wiping sweat from his brow. His assistant, Ensign Aditi Rana, gave a short laugh. "You think the Zorvans celebrate New Year's?" "They're about to," Marco said grimly. Above them, on the command deck, Admiral Voss finalized the battle strategy. "The Dauntless will engage their perimeter defenses head-on," she told her team, her tone crisp and confident. "While they're busy with us, Retribution and Spearhead will flank their fleet. Our goal is to punch through their lines, deliver the payload, and get out." The officers nodded, their faces set in grim determination. The stakes were high, but so was humanity's resolve. If the Zorvans wanted a fight, humanity would give them a war. First contact. Again. When the UNSV task force emerged from hyperspace, the Zorvan fleet was waiting. Hundreds of sleek, black ships glinted menacingly against the stars. They were arranged in perfect formation, their shields shimmering faintly. "Incoming transmission from the Zorvan flagship," Lieutenant Commander Kane reported. "Put it through," Voss ordered. The holographic display flickered to life, revealing a Zorvan admiral. His reptilian features twisted into what might have been a sneer. Golden scales caught the light, and his eyes, slitted and unblinking, radiated contempt. "Humans," the Zorvan drawled, his voice a low hiss. "You persist in defying the inevitable. Your colony burns, your people scatter like insects, and yet you still challenge us." Kayla's lips curled into a cold smile. "You bombed us. Adorable. Watch this." With a sharp gesture, she cut the transmission. "All units, engage." The battle erupted in an instant. The Dauntless surged forward, its weapons blazing. Pulse cannons and railguns tore through the vacuum, slamming into the Zorvan front lines. Explosions rippled through space as smaller Zorvan ships disintegrated under the barrage. The Zorvans responded with brutal efficiency. Swarms of fighters darted around the human ships, their energy weapons carving through shields and armor. The Dauntless shuddered as enemy fire raked its hull, but its guns didn't falter. The turning point. Omega payload ready for deployment. Marco's voice crackled over the comms. "Acknowledged," Voss replied. "Helm, take us into the breach." The Dauntless pushed forward, its engines roaring. Zorvan ships closed in, but the human fleet held the line. The Retribution and Spearhead moved into position, their coordinated fire creating a narrow corridor through the enemy ranks. "Target the flagship," Voss commanded. "Let's see how their admiral likes being on the receiving end." The Omega payload was launched with a flash of light. The torpedoes streaked through space, weaving past enemy fire as if guided by a will of its own. When it struck the Zorvan flagship, the effect was immediate. A massive explosion erupted, engulfing the flagship in a blinding sphere of energy. The shockwave rippled outward, short-circuiting nearby ships and leaving them adrift. The Zorvan formation crumbled as chaos spread through their fleet. Cheers erupted on the Dauntless bridge, but Voss wasn't ready to celebrate yet. "Don't let up," she ordered. "Push them back." The human fleet pressed the advantage, exploiting the Zorvan's disarray. One by one, enemy ships fell, their hulks scattering like ash on the wind. Finally, the remaining Zorvans began to retreat, their once mighty fleet reduced to a shadow of its former self. Aftermath. The Dauntless limped back to human-controlled space, its hull scarred but its spirit unbroken. Casualty reports came in, and each name carved a hole in Voss's heart. But for the first time since the war began, humanity had struck a decisive blow. In the war room, Voss and her officers reviewed the battle's outcome. The destruction of the Zorvan flagship had been a turning point, but it was only the beginning. "They'll come back," Kane said, his voice heavy. "And next time, they'll be even more prepared." "So will we," Voss replied. "They wanted a fight, and now they've got one. Let's show them what humanity can do." As the officers dispersed, Voss looked out the viewport, her gaze fixed on the stars. The Zorvans had underestimated humanity once. They wouldn't make that mistake again, but by the time they realized it, it would already be too late. Humanity wasn't just fighting for survival. They were fighting to win. Section 3. Retaliation. The attack on Earth wasn't just unprovoked. It was a statement. An alien alliance calling themselves the Zealer Collective had decided humanity was a growing threat. They dropped bombs capable of decimating entire continents, an act of annihilation they thought would cow the humans into submission. Instead, they made a grievous miscalculation. Command has given the green light. Deep within the subterranean layers of Echelon Base, Commander Rachel West strode into the tactical room. The air thrummed with tension as officers and analysts coordinated through holographic maps and streams of data. "Ladies and gentlemen," Rachel began, her voice cutting through the controlled chaos, "we have confirmation. Every attempt to contact the Zealer Collective diplomatically has been ignored. Command has authorized Operation Iron Fist." Murmurs of assent rippled through the room. Iron Fist wasn't just a response. It was humanity's first demonstration of its hidden arsenal, technology born from decades of research, reverse engineering, and sheer human ingenuity. "Time to show them what happens when you kick the hornet's nest," Colonel Janus muttered, a wry smile creeping onto his face. Rachel nodded. Janice, I want you overseeing the deployment of the hammerheads. This is no time for subtlety. Hit them hard and fast. The Zealer won't know what hit them. Across the solar system, fleets of stealth-capable warships lay dormant in asteroid fields and lunar shadows. At the heart of these fleets were Hammerhead-class vessels, sleek, angular crafts bristling with weapons no alien had ever seen. Captain Andrea Malik of the UHS Intrepid stood on the bridge, her crew silent but charged with anticipation. Target coordinates received, said her tactical officer, Lieutenant Park. Zealer fleet stationed near the Andar Nebula. Their orbital defenses are light, but there's a significant fleet presence. Andrea's lips curved into a grin. Good. We'll test our new toys on live targets. The Intrepid and its sister ships powered up their engines, the faint hum of quantum reactors barely perceptible. These ships weren't just stealthy, they were faster than anything in the galaxy, capable of bending space-time itself. The first strike. When the Intrepid arrived at the Andar Nebula, the Zealer fleet was caught completely off guard. Hundreds of their warships floated in perfect formation, oblivious to the approaching threat. Andrea didn't give them the chance to react. Fire the railguns, she ordered. Two twin-barreled cannons emerged from the Intrepid's hull, their barrels glowing faintly as magnetic fields charged to maximum intensity. A fraction of a second later, projectiles accelerated to near-light speeds tore through space. The first Zealer destroyer split in two before its shields could activate. Explosions rippled through their formation as human ships decloaked and unleashed hell. The Zealer scrambled to respond, but humanity had brought more than brute force. Swarms of autonomous drones zipped through the battlefield, weaving between enemy ships and delivering precise strikes to critical systems. For every Zealer ship that managed to fire back, 3 more were obliterated before their targeting computers could even lock on. Andrea's voice rang across the bridge. Bring us around for another pass. I want every one of their carriers down. Yes, Captain, Park replied. Within minutes, the once mighty Zealer fleet was reduced to scattered wreckage. Back on Earth, while the Intrepid and its fleet dismantled the Zealer's outer defenses, Earth itself was far from idle. The Zealer bombing had united humanity in a way no one thought possible. Factories that once manufactured consumer goods now churned out advanced weaponry and starship components. Scientists, engineers, and programmers worked around the clock to push the boundaries of what was possible. Dr. Elena Suarez, a lead scientist at the Geneva Research Institute, monitored the activation of a prototype weapon, the Hyperion Lance. It was a planetary defense system capable of firing concentrated energy beams across light years. The Zealers' arrogance had been their downfall. They'd underestimated humanity's capacity for rapid innovation. Hyperion Lance charging sequence initiated, an AI voice announced. Elena watched as the weapon came to life, its energy signature lighting up every sensor on Earth. When they see this, she said quietly, they'll think twice about ever underestimating us again. Zealer command in disarray. Far from the battlefield, the Zealer High Council convened aboard their flagship, Eminence. Counselor Vralek slammed a fist onto the table. How is this possible? They were supposed to be primitive. Their planet barely qualifies as a class for civilization. Admiral Zealan, the fleet commander, looked equally shaken. Their technology is decades, if not centuries, ahead of what our intelligence suggested. We've already lost 3 fleets. They're dismantling us piece by piece. Vralek's expression darkened. Then we escalate. Deploy the Annihilators. If we can't defeat them conventionally, we'll erase them from existence. Humanity strikes back. The Annihilators were Zealer superweapons, planet killers designed to vaporize entire worlds. But humanity had anticipated this move. As the Annihilators approached Earth's orbit, hidden orbital platforms activated. Fire the Hyperion Lance, Rachel commanded from Echelon Base. A beam of blinding energy lanced through space, striking the first Annihilator. Its shields held for less than a second before the entire ship disintegrated. The second and third Annihilators met the same fate, leaving the Zealer forces in stunned silence. Meanwhile, human fleets pressed their advantage. Using newly developed jump gates, they struck deep into Zealer territory, targeting shipyards, supply lines, and command centers. Every victory was a message. Humanity was not just surviving, it was winning. The final message. As the Zealer collective faced the brink of collapse, humanity sent an envoy. It wasn't an olive branch, but a warning. A single human ship entered Zealer's home system and broadcast a message in their native tongue. You bombed us? Adorable. Watch this. Then the ship released its payload, a microfleet of drones that disabled every planetary defense system in minutes. The Zealer High Council had no choice but to surrender. Aftermath. The war ended not with a treaty but a simple declaration. Humanity was here to stay. The Zealer collective was dismantled, its resources and technology seized to fuel humanity's expansion into the stars. Earth rebuilt stronger than ever, its people united by the knowledge that they had faced annihilation and emerged victorious. As Commander Rachel West looked out over the rebuilt skyline of New London, she allowed herself a rare moment of satisfaction. Humanity had been tested and had proved its resilience. "Let's see who's next," she said, a glint of determination in her eyes. Section 4. The Unseen Reckoning. The glittering armada of the Verdax Confederation drifted silently in orbit above Terra, their sleek, silvery hulls catching the sunlight in waves. It had been days since the incident, though calling it that almost felt disrespectful. The humans had a different term for it, an atrocity. Admiral Thok, the Verdax fleet commander, paced the bridge of his flagship, Vyrik's Honor. He had always admired humans, despite their primitive tendencies and disjointed political structure. They were vibrant, chaotic, and utterly fascinating. Yet the decision to bomb one of their outposts on Europa had not been his. That order had come from the High Command, a decision steeped in political strategy and cold pragmatism. "Admiral," a junior officer called, her voice tinged with unease. We've intercepted another transmission from the surface." Thaka's tendrils twitched with irritation. Ever since the bombing, the humans had been unrelenting. They hadn't retaliated militarily, not yet, but their broadcasts, those were a different matter. "Play it," Thok ordered, bracing himself. The screen flickered to life, revealing a human male in a simple gray uniform, standing against a backdrop of stars. His face was calm, but his eyes burned with a quiet fury that made Thaka's scales tighten involuntarily. "This is Commander Elias Trent of the Terran Defense Force," the man began, his voice steady. "To the Verdax Confederation. You bombed us. Adorable. Watch this." The feed cut abruptly, leaving the bridge in tense silence. "Adorable," one of the officers murmured, their beak clicking in confusion. "What does that even mean?" Thok didn't answer. He was too busy staring out at the endless expanse of space beyond the viewport, his mind racing. Humans were known for their unpredictability, their flair for drama. The phrase, "watch this," felt less like a warning and more like a promise. On Earth, deep beneath the sprawling megacity of New Chicago, Commander Trent stood in the heart of the Terran Strategic Operations Center. Massive holographic displays filled the room, each one showing a different facet of the unfolding plan. "Status update," Trent barked, his voice cutting through the controlled chaos. "All orbital railguns are primed and ready," Lieutenant Gomez reported, her fingers dancing across the console. "Planetary defense grids are on standby." And she hesitated, glancing at Trent. "Project Revenant has been deployed." Trent nodded grimly. Project Revenant had been humanity's ace in the hole, a contingency plan born out of centuries of warfare and hard-earned paranoia. It wasn't just a weapon. It was a declaration. "Good," he said. "Initiate Phase 1. Let's give them something to think about." Aboard Vyrik's Honor, alarms blared as Verdax ships scrambled to respond to the sudden appearance of human vessels. They weren't battleships or fighters, as Thok expected. Instead, they were sleek, unarmed craft, drones, by the looks of them, launching from Earth in waves. "Admiral, the humans have deployed something," the tactical officer reported. "It's their dispersing particles?" Thaka's eyes narrowed. "Magnify." The display zoomed in on one of the drones as it released a shimmering cloud of microscopic particles. The sensor struggled to identify the material, flagging it with a dozen warnings. But before Nthok could issue an order, the first wave hit the fleet. Electromagnetic disruptions detected. A crew member shouted, "Our shields are destabilizing." "Impossible," Nthok hissed. Verdak's shielding technology was unmatched, capable of withstanding solar flares and particle storms. Yet, somehow, these nanoparticles were bypassing their defenses, burrowing into the hulls of their ships like a swarm of angry insects. The lights on the bridge flickered, and Nthok's command console crackled with static. "Admiral, we're losing power to critical systems." Back on Earth, Trent watched the chaos unfold on the tactical display. Each red blip representing a Verdak's ship began to flicker, then vanish, as the fleet systems succumbed to the swarms of self-replicating nanites. "Phase 1 complete," Gomez said, her tone tinged with satisfaction. "The Verdak's fleet is effectively blind and crippled." Trent allowed himself a small smile. "Good. Now let's show them why you don't poke the bear." In orbit, the Verdak's fleet struggled to regroup. The once pristine formation had devolved into chaos, ships colliding as they drifted aimlessly. Communication was down, navigation systems were fried, and even basic life support was beginning to fail. But the humans weren't done. Out of the darkness came a new wave of ships, these larger and unmistakably armed. They moved with a precision and efficiency that made Nthok's stomach churn. Humanity's true military might had been a mystery to the galaxy for centuries, hidden behind layers of diplomacy and misdirection. Now it was on full display. "Admiral," one of his officers croaked, their voice barely audible over the cacophony of alarms. "We were detecting energy signatures consistent with planet-cracking weapons." Nthok froze. "They wouldn't," he whispered. They're not savages." Yet, as the first Terran battleship opened fire, unleashing a beam of searing light that sliced cleanly through one of the Verdak's cruisers, he realized he might have underestimated them. In the days that followed, the galaxy watched in stunned silence as the humans systematically dismantled the Verdak's armada. But it wasn't just their military prowess that left an impression, it was their restraint. Despite their overwhelming advantage, the humans didn't annihilate the Verdak's forces. Instead, they disabled them, rendering their ships inoperable, but leaving their crews alive. When the last Verdak's vessel was towed back to their homeworld by human ships, a simple message accompanied it. This was a warning. Don't make us repeat it. For the first time in millennia, the Verdak's high command felt fear. They had awakened something they couldn't control, something they barely understood. And as the humans turned their gaze back to the stars, the message was clear. Humanity wasn't just another player in the galactic game. They were the reckoning. Chapter 1. The Spark of Defiance. Europa Colony Alpha was supposed to be a beacon of hope. Nestled beneath the icy crust of Jupiter's moon, it was a marvel of human engineering, a sprawling habitat designed to extract resources and support life in one of the harshest environments known to man. For years, it thrived, a testament to humanity's resilience and ingenuity. Until the Verdak's bombed it. The attack was sudden and brutal. The Verdak's Confederation, a coalition of alien species known for their cold, calculating strategies, had long viewed humanity as an upstart civilization. To them, Earth was a noisy newcomer disrupting the galactic order. The bombing of Europa Colony was intended as a warning, a message to humanity that they should know their place. But humanity didn't take kindly to warnings. Commander Elias Trent stood in the rubble of what had once been the central hub of Europa Colony. The dome that had shielded the colony from Jupiter's harsh radiation lay in shattered pieces, its fragments glittering in the pale light filtering through the moon's ice. The air was thick with the acrid stench of burnt metal and ozone, a grim reminder of the carnage. "Casualty report," Trent said, his voice tight. Lieutenant Gomez, his second-in-command, handed him a tablet. Her face was pale, her hands shaking. 80% of the population is unaccounted for," she said. "Survivors are being evacuated to the auxiliary modules, but, Commander, it's bad." Trent scanned the report, his jaw tightening with each line. Hundreds dead, countless more missing. The colony's infrastructure was in ruins, and vital systems were failing. Yet, beneath the sorrow and anger, a fire burned in his chest. They would pay for this. Back on Earth, news of the attacks spread like wildfire. The United Nations convened an emergency session, while social media platforms erupted with outrage and grief. Protests and vigils sprang up in cities across the globe, uniting humanity in a way that hadn't been seen in decades. In the shadows, the Terran Defense Force prepared to act. "What's the status of Project Revenant?" Trent asked, his voice cutting through the controlled chaos of the Terran Strategic Operations Center. The room buzzed with activity as analysts and technicians scrambled to coordinate the response to the attack. "Fully operational," replied Dr. Helena Vasquez, the lead scientist behind the project. Her tone was calm, but her eyes gleamed with a dangerous determination. "We've been waiting for an opportunity to field test it." Trent nodded. "Then let's show the Verdax what happens when you push humanity too far." Chapter 2. The Shadow of Retaliation. The Verdax High Command sat in their grand chamber, a cavernous room filled with ornate sculptures and shimmering holographic displays. Admiral Katherine stood at the center, addressing the assembled leaders. The bombing of Europa colony had been a tactical decision, one made to assert dominance over the humans and remind them of their inferiority. "The humans will protest, of course," Katherine said, his voice dripping with disdain. "But they are fractured, disorganized. They lack the unity and strength to challenge the Confederation. And if they retaliate," one of the leaders asked, their voice a low rumble. Katharin's tendrils curled in amusement. "Let them. Their military capabilities are laughable compared to ours. A single Verdax fleet could crush their entire armada." The chamber hummed with approval. To the Verdax, humanity was little more than an annoyance, a noisy insect to be swatted away when it became too bothersome. They had no idea what was coming. In the depths of Earth's atmosphere, hidden beneath layers of stealth technology, a Terran battleship powered up its engines. The Resolute, one of humanity's most advanced warships, was the tip of the spear in the counterstrike against the Verdax. "All systems green," reported Captain Aria Bennett, her voice steady despite the tension in the air. "Weapons primed and ready." "Good," Trent said, his gaze fixed on the holographic display in front of him. It showed the Verdax fleet in orbit above Europa, their ships gleaming like malevolent stars. "Let's remind them why you don't mess with Earth." The Resolute jumped to FTL, accompanied by a fleet of smaller vessels. They emerged in the midst of the Verdax armada, their sudden appearance triggering a flurry of alarms on the alien ships. "Engage targets," Trent ordered. "And make it loud." The humans struck with surgical precision. Railguns fired kinetic projectiles at near-light speeds, tearing through Verdax hulls like paper. Swarms of drones, equipped with EMP weapons, disabled the enemy's shields and systems. Within minutes, the once imposing fleet was in disarray. On the surface of Europa, Verdax ground forces attempted to regroup, but they were met with fierce resistance. Human soldiers, equipped with advanced exocets and experimental weaponry, moved like ghosts through the wreckage of the colony. Each strike was calculated, each action deliberate. "Push them back," shouted Sergeant Liu, her voice crackling over the comms. "This is our home. Make them pay for every step they take." The battle raged for hours, but the outcome was never in doubt. The Verdax, unprepared for the ferocity of humanity's response, were forced to retreat. As their ships limped away from Europa, humanity sent a clear message. "You started this war. We'll finish it."